My name's Todd Norian, and I'm the founder of Ashaya Yoga. I want to welcome everybody to this leadership trilogy #2 on the importance of sadhana, or spiritual practice, in leadership. The first one I did was on Dharma, and I talked about having a purpose, and now we're going to talk about spiritual practice. But before I dive in, I'd like to send a special thank you to 3 students who were the first to register as repeaters to the Ashaya Path Teacher and Leadership Training. And those are Valerie Hobson, Dawn Tucker, and Betsy Garnett. So I just want to say thank you for registering, repeating the course. They're going to, refine and deepen their studies. They've taken a previous 200-hour teacher training with me, and they're coming back to deepen. So I really look forward to coming back together again for this incredible journey, the Ashaya Path Teacher and Leadership Training. So I want to talk today a little bit about, what it means to be a heart leader and the importance of sadhana, which means spiritual practice. Like, why is sadhana important? I think the first thing we need to understand is that how we lead ourselves is how we show up as leaders in life. And so to the extent that we're able to really be with ourselves and accept ourselves, that capacity we have is what's going to show up in the world. And so there's importance then to practice being with ourselves. And how do we be with ourselves is developed when we have some kind of a regular committed practice. And so that's what a spiritual practice does. And it helps us become clear with ourselves. If you remember, the tantric teachings are so much about this universal presence, this one universal light that is unlimited, unbounded, has no obstacles, has no limitations. And that one pure energy is what flows through us that actually becomes us. Then we show up and we're in our individual self, which has its own set of obstacles, has limitations. And the Tantra is teaching us that our obstacles, our limitations are not bad. They're actually gifts that create our character, that create our individual nature. It's what gives variety to the world. So we really want to learn how to embrace these individual characteristics. What we also have in terms of limitation are what I call the shadow self, which are parts of us that we have cut off, or parts that we, don't really like about ourselves. And these shadow selves are really our blind spots. And if you don't regularly embrace these shadows and face whatever our weaknesses are, whatever our challenges are, that they start to fester and they start to really obstruct our perspective. And that's, if we're not working on getting rid of those obstacles, then as we lead, we're going to be blinded by these obstructions that we never really even know that they're there, or even get a chance to work on them. So it's very important that we have a practice that helps us get connected to these shadows. And then, denial becomes like a smokescreen. Like, we deny we have shadow, it's a smokescreen. And that's what creates misfit leadership. So we all come from the one universal life force that is pure, that is vast. And so what happens is when we encounter these limits in ourselves, the limits disappear. And if they don't totally disappear, they become pointers to the light. So that's what we want to learn about as leaders. How do we use our shadow as pointers to the light? And when you're able to do that, you've gained a very deep level of self-mastery, such that not even the shadow can get in your way from being a role model for other people. So when these shadows disappear, then we could say that those shadows are really phantoms in the night that disappear when they're exposed to the light of consciousness. So we have to really try to understand like how these shadows work. They're not like permanent obstacles that are there to just block us so we walk around blind all the time. That would be crazy. Life has your back. Everything in life is for your awakening, even the shadow, except we've forgotten, or we've never really learned how to grow ourselves from the shadow. And when we're aware of our limitations, we want to learn how to embrace them with self-acceptance and self-love, such that we don't push them down further into our subconscious. So sadhana is a spiritual practice, and the Ashaya morning sadhana is a set of practices that help us to remove obstacles, that help us get very, very close to this pure light of consciousness, that unbounded part of consciousness, that when every day you come close to that light, it starts to rub off on us. And then when it rubs off, it starts to purify. And I think of this light as the fire of sadhana purifies and start to dissolve whatever it is that's in the way, such that when we see through the glasses of life, we're seeing clearly rather than the spots on our glasses. And that helps to broaden our perspective when we come into challenges and other things in life. Instead of being completely thrown out of our center, we stay centered, we stay calm, and then we make better decisions when we're centered. There's a metaphor of consciousness that I'd like to share with you that says consciousness is like going to the movies. And what we see is the drama of our life projected on a screen. Now, the screen is there. Our drama is projected on the screen of pure consciousness. It's like pure light that was there even before you went to the movies. Even before your drama goes on the screen, that light was there. It's a pure constant. And so we see the drama of our life projected onto the screen. And to the extent that we can see the light is the extent that we'll be a very high quality leader. Because when we get closer to that light, it purifies our vision so that we're able to see more clearly. And then we can allow the drama of our life to unfold before us, and we can see it unfolding before us and not be so attached to it, and not be so attached that we're pulled out of our center and we're pulled by fear. And we do things that are less skillful because we're afraid of being hurt. We're either avoiding the hurt, or we don't want to hurt someone else, or we somehow go away from the vision of ourselves that we really hold. And instead of acting in alignment with our values, we start to act in alignment with our fears. And that's when leadership goes crazy. That's when our life really goes out of control. So we want to learn how to come back to be able to see the projection of our drama onto the pure light and be connected, so connected to the pure light that it starts to purify. Remember, when the shadow is exposed to the light, it disappears or it becomes pointers to the light. So we've all been through so many challenges. I've recently gotten through a challenge of a wonderful 27-year-old marriage came to an end, and I recently got divorced. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it. But basically, the bottom line of that was that I entered really into a lot of pain and suffering. And I'm so grateful for my morning practice because it helped me stay centered. Now, I had a choice. I could go down into feelings of guilt or regret and even failure. Like divorce is such a horrible word. I wish it was a different word for it, but there's no sort of other way to describe it. But we can get into feeling like the marriage failed. Yes, the marriage failed, but it doesn't mean that your life failed. A lot of times the divorce is really the best step, the most positive step forward to continue. So I could have chosen to go into regret and guilt and feel like a failure, but I chose to rise up. My sadhana kept me clear. It kept me connected to the pure light of consciousness, where I could see that the only option left for me to do was to exit, was to get out of this relationship, and it's okay. And instead of creating further separation, I've been able to actually create a friendship. So I reached out to her, and brought my own sense of forgiveness where I let go of the blame. She brought a sense of remorse. We both sort of brought our hearts back into the equation. And I got the healing that I was looking for, which was to be friends, to recognize. I mean, after 27 years, you can't just like forget about the other person. We're always in relationship. And part of leadership is making the choice, and sometimes it's the hard decision that we feel like we have to make to continue to walk on the path of our heart. But we can walk with a heavy burden of resentment, or we can walk with a feeling of okayness, a feeling of love, a feeling of acceptance, even though it was challenging. And so that was an experience where I felt like the strength that I had in my personal practice helped me to see and helped me to navigate through these sort of difficult hurdles. And we have that throughout life. I'm not special just because I went through a divorce. We all have various things: loss of a job, loss of a loved one. We're grieving, or such a hard time. So it's very important to have a connection and an anchor and a root to some kind of a practice that clarifies us. And that's what a Shaya morning practice does. So I want to invite you to reflect deeply on what would the value of having a steady, consistent morning practice do for you in your life? Would it be beneficial to you? And I have to say that, yes, absolutely, it was so beneficial for me. And if that's the case for you, then I invite you to join me. Come and do an Ashaya morning practice program, or better yet, come and join the Ashaya Path Teacher and Leadership Training that starts on September 24th. So the Ashaya morning practice is one of the pillars of this journey, and you can do the 36-hour version of it, or you can do the entire 200-hour teacher training version of the Ashaya Path. And at the core of it is this Ashaya morning practice that's, based on very deep and ancient esoteric practices, mantra meditation, pranayama. There's even some Kriya practice that starts after the third module, and Shavasana. And it's just such an in-depth practice so that every day we create a connection, we anchor ourselves in the spirit of life itself. That when we come close to the threshold where the light is pure, that our individual nature comes and sits face to face with this universal nature, it starts to clear, it clarifies us, it cleans our glasses, and it clarifies our vision, our perspective, such that we start to see reality as it is, not through the lens of fear, not through the lens of our drama. That's what's being projected onto the screen. I'm saying we need a practice to see through the drama into what the drama is projecting onto, which is the light of vast, pure, universal consciousness. That is who we are, that takes its expression and its form through our own individual nature, which is also divine. We're not here to like erase ourselves or to somehow, eliminate our individuality. No, our individuality, these shadows, these limitations, these so-called flaws, we're going to learn how to turn those into blessings, into gifts. And that's the art of masterful living. That's really what I believe we're here to do in life. So I invite you to join me. You can go to ashayayoga.com, click on the teacher training course, and you'll see all the information there. And if you have questions at all, you can email me at info@ashayayoga.com. And I look forward to seeing you there. Okay. Namaste. Thank you for taking this time with me. Bye.